Are you holding on to your ex or partner when you know it's time to let go? You might not believe this, but these type of entanglements is often completely out of your conscious control. Do you feel like that person has to be right next to you by your side in order for you to be happy? Do they need to support you for you to be okay? Do they need to validate you for you to feel good about yourself? If that's the case, even just slightly so, you might be soul entangled with this person. Today, we are going to look at 3 signs that you could be soul-tied entangled with this person, and stay right to the end to get some tips on how you can free and release yourself. So, Quinton, why do we do this to ourselves?
The problem is people focus mostly on external validation. And your inner sense of self-worth is something that can only be discovered by yourself. It's not dependable on someone else. Let me give you a practical example. I'm going to use myself as that example. If I think of my younger version of myself, I had a belief that if I'm going to be in a relationship, I'm going to be happy. So the first relationship that came along, I said, yes, let me take this relationship. And then in that relationship, what I noticed is my happiness became dependent on the other individual. And if they were happy, I felt happy, content. If they were upset, I always questioned myself. Did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with me?
So if I listen to you, it sounds like you're totally at the mercy of that other person's mood. And I cannot imagine what an emotional roller coaster that must be, walking on eggshells, worrying about what mood they are going to be in when they get home, worrying constantly if what you say or what you do or even who you are is acceptable, or is that going to upset them? That really sounds like a relationship prison after all.
Most definitely. It felt like completely stuck. But I'm also grateful for that experience because I've learned such a lot about it. Let's discuss the second sign that you are possibly in a soul entanglement. Do you experience a sense of possessiveness and jealousy in your relationship?
That's interesting that you've mentioned that. I see many clients who are struggling with that, checking phones, checking social media, being told you're not allowed to be friends with that person, facing a million questions. Where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with? All of that. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Then it might be an indication that you could be emotionally entangled with this person.
The challenge is, I think, when you're in that relationship, it feels like you don't have a choice. You feel stuck. This becomes the dynamic of the relationship itself. I've seen this playing out in the extreme, where the partner tells him or her what not to wear, and dare they not listen.
Sure. That sounds very controlling. Like control plays a big role here.
Control definitely plays a big role. And for one person, it feels like they need a control in order to feel safe for themselves and to feel safe in the relationship itself. But while the other partner in the relationship becomes the people pleaser, and they feel they need to keep the peace in order for the relationship to survive.
And the irony with that is that that's actually not safety. This type of behavior doesn't create safety, and it doesn't create real connection. It's actually an illusion. This everything is safe and won't necessarily end. That's such an illusion.
Most definitely, it's 100% an illusion. But they can't actually, while they're in a relationship, they can't see what they're actually doing. And they get stuck in this relationship. It become like a pattern inside the relationship itself, and it becomes a dynamic.
Becomes the norm.
And yeah, most
it's
definitely.
Familiar.
I think most people get trapped in familiarity.
Yes.
And that is many times what creates that stuckness. This brings us to the third sign, lack of setting boundaries.
Oh, Quinton, do people even know what boundaries are in relationships?
Good question. Most people believe that boundaries is about control or punishment, or it's the ability to say no.
That's the most common understanding, that if I maintain my boundaries, I can say no. But is it only that?
It's definitely part of it, but it's a very small aspect of it. So if you want to learn more about boundaries, watch our YouTube video about boundaries. What I've noticed is that people get so entangled in a relationship that they start to sacrifice their own values, their beliefs, their morals, their standards. And now in the relationship, they start to lose themselves. And now they become disconnected from themselves. Let me give you a practical example. I've seen in many relationships, one partner has a need, for example, a sexual need or a fantasy. And the other partner don't really want to play, don't want to be part of that sexual need or fantasy. But now they comply in order to keep the peace. And they comply because they have a fear, if I don't, I'm going to lose this relationship. And now this relationship gets based more on fear than on love.
Sure, and I can imagine that if you keep on allowing something that you don't really want, somewhere down the line, you don't even know what you want anymore or what you like. And over time, I would imagine you kind of lose yourself in this relationship. So how many of you have ever felt like you lost yourself a bit in a relationship? Or have ever felt that you are stuck on your ex or stuck in a relationship? Today we covered 3 signs that you could possibly be soul tie entangled with that person. So let's quickly recap. First sign is that you're looking to the other person for validation and a sense of emotional stability. And the second sign is that there are feelings or experiences of jealousy and possessiveness. And the third sign is that there's a lack of boundaries in the relationship. Now, imagine if you could free yourself from this stuckness, if you are so familiar with feeling stuck for what felt like the longest time, how liberating would it be if you suddenly didn't have to explain yourself anymore? You don't have to worry whether you're going to upset the person, say something wrong, do something wrong. You could actually express your feelings and your thoughts without judgment. You could actually say no without feeling guilty. How amazing would that feel?
That would feel like breaking out of a prison.
Absolutely. If you could just be you, you know who you are, you know what you want, you make your own decisions, and at the same time you feel like you are treated with respect and with safety.
In psychology, we have a saying that your sense of self-worth is dependable on how much you know yourself. There's a famous saying that say, know thyself. And that is the core of a person's self-worth. Just imagine you're in a relationship which is destructive, which have these 3 signs. Now, therefore, you will automatically start to lose yourself. And you will start to disconnect from the essence of your own being. And in the end of the day, you lack identity. And you lack your own self-worth. You know yourself less.
So what can we do? How do you get out of this?
First of all, I think it's important to realize that you are actually trapped inside the soul entanglement. And you can't necessarily see what you do because you're actually in it. It's much more difficult to see what we actually do when we're actually stuck in that relationship itself. So the first step of what you can do is awareness. Because the moment if there's a sense of awareness, awareness creates a space between me and the situation. And if there's some space, there's an opportunity for a different perspective. There's an opportunity for a different insight. Then I can see more. And if I can see more, I can start doing actually something differently.
And making different choices.
Making different choices.
Okay, so perspective.
Perspective.
From
yes,
that awareness.
Yes. The second thing you can do is to reflect on your patterns and on your woundings. Because we go so easily into blaming the other person or blaming the relationship. But it's important to look at the relationship itself in its essence and look at the patterns inside the relationship And many times there's even destructive patterns. And it's good to look at this relationship, but it's so important to go back into your previous relationships as well, because many times we keep repeating the same mistakes from relationship to relationship. So if you can identify that patterns, you already can see what you can do differently. And that pattern will reflect your wound.
And we keep dating our wounds until we heal.
Remember these 2 tips. Number 1, awareness. Number 2, identifying your patterns and your own wounds. But there's definitely more than just this. So if you want to learn more about breaking free from soul tie entanglements, and stay on the lookout for any upcoming webinars.
So see you in the next video.
I must have caught you at a bad time.